Console Plunderstorm game? That'd be kind of interesting, actually. What up, Elevator? Am I a pirate yet? I actually wonder when the game does the game mode not come up until they finish maintenance on NA? Dude, like, is this gonna be I actually didn't check. Is this gonna be a global release? Is the Plunderstorm shit gonna be a global release? Because it's like a different game mode. I think you like select it from your BNet launcher, like separately from WoW. It's not global release? That's so stupid, man. Fuck. Ah, man. But yeah, it actually looks like it's gonna be an interesting game mode. I want to like it. I don't think I probably will enjoy it. BR stuff is not, I don't think, a genre that especially appeals to me, and the WoW version of it is probably less so. But I don't know, if they have cool rewards in it, I might. Now look at the tune. Oh, I did. Some of that stuff is interesting. Part of it is I wish they were a bit more I wish they were a bit more or I should say a bit less vague about what some of these tuning changes are for trinkets. That was the most interesting part to me of all these changes. But they didn't. They just said, like, some of these trinkets have been significantly reworked. Skyfall, thank you for the resub, babes. 7 months. Appreciate it. And thank you for your continued inclusion in the J-Dot, babes. Zoljin, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Who? Went into 1026 expecting this to be a quest chain with a pirate hat and the toys are reward, and you're still disappointed. Look, I don't want to hear any doomer shit about a new game mode. I mean, I feel like anybody that came into 1026, we get a whole ass new game mode, and people are like, oh, like if your initial reaction is like this, like come on, man. I mean, it's a fucking throwaway patch in the middle of a throwaway tier. I mean, I think this is, and I say this as somebody who's not even necessarily excited about Plunderstorm itself as a game mode, but like it's just cool to see them mixing up the formula. You know, is Plunderstorm something that I'm personally excited about? Throwaway patch and a throwaway tier? Well, I mean, a timing of it wise. I don't mean that this was a. I don't mean throwaway in the sense that they are bad. I mean throwaway in the sense that nothing important ever happens in the middle of a tier. Like they never do anything significant 4 months into a tier or whatever. So to get a whole ass new game mode that just drops down at this point in the expansion is like unprecedented. Like this is always the time of an expansion where you're just kind of twiddling your thumbs waiting for beta to come out. Waiting for next expansion notes. So much dev time that could have gone in for a new raid in season 4. I doubt it. I'll bet that I'll bet the amount of time it took to make this, like you probably didn't have to come up with very many new assets for this. I suspect a lot of time that goes into making new raids and shit is around designing stuff. And I doubt there's anywhere near that amount of manpower spent on making assets for this game mode. They probably reused a lot of shit. They didn't have to invent 7, 8, 9 new bosses, flesh them out with mechanics, create an entirely new raid, create a whole new loot table, all that shit. But I just spent the past stream or two saying I would really love for Blizzard to experiment more, to try new shit. And this is like the epitome of that. Even if the result of the experiment is not something that I am personally fond of, I doubt I'll spend much, really, if any, time in Plunderstorm. I am okay with swinging for the fence like that. Class changes? Yeah, so we can look through, obviously, the big headline for 10.2.6 is Plunderstorm. For anybody that did not already see the news, there's a new game mode coming out here that's a battle royale, and you will, it's 60 player, and you will have nothing but a basic attack and a recharging health potions, and then you need to kill NPCs and other players to gain experience, acquire spells, and level up over the course of a match in order to come out on top. And it says, unlike regular WoW, where you mostly tab target and auto attack or use abilities to deal damage, Plunderstorm spells, which are required from slain enemies or found in chests sprinkled throughout Arathi Highlands, are mostly skill shots that require proper timing and positioning. So this will be a fairly different take. I mean, obviously using like the same engine, but a pretty different take on World of Warcraft. And I think that seems interesting. Like I said, I'm not a battle royale guy. I'm not necessarily super pumped up to play this, but I like what it represents. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know how well received it'll be, but I could also see this being the kind of thing that brings in a different type of player, appeals to a different type of player. And that's fine. Hate the idea of Battle Royale, but feel FOMO'd into having to participate for retail rewards? I mean, but that's the thing is, like, maybe you'll love it. I don't know. To me, I think that's okay that they put rewards in there because that's how they get you in the door. Your first instinct might be like, ugh, I hate BR, and I'm not going to play that shit. So they're going to incentivize you to come in and try it. Maybe you love it. And if not, the newness of it will probably keep it at least tolerable until you've earned several of the rewards. But anyway, yeah, then they also released tuning. So a little something for everybody in the 10.2.6 notes. So they put a note in here that says, we've updated the power of many of the set bonuses that are returning for Season 4 to match the increased power of the rest of the new gear in Season 4. So I believe this is their, they made that pledge when they started voting for set bonuses. They made that pledge that, like, if anything is if any of the set bonuses are like undertuned compared to current set bonuses. Like, vote on what you think sounds cool, and then let us tune it to be appropriate. Because that was one of the problems with a lot of the season 1 set bonuses is Blizzard said back at the beginning of Dragonflight they were intending to keep the season 1 set bonuses a bit underpowered relative to what you would normally expect from a set bonus, because Blizzard was trying to get all the talents. They said, okay, we're still in the process of like getting everybody's talent trees worked out. So in order to not take on too much, like put too much on our plate, balancing wise, with trying to get these talents figured out and trying to tune set bonuses at the same time, we're intentionally making some of the season 1 or all of the season 1 set bonuses a bit lighter in terms of impact, so that we have an easier time figuring out how to get everybody's talent trees sorted out. So a lot of the season 1 set bonuses conceptually may have been interesting, but numbers wise may have been a bit undertuned compared to where we found ourselves with the season 2 and season 3 set bonuses. So I think this is Blizzard's attempt to say, okay, if your class voted in one of the season 1 set bonuses that are probably underpowered relative to season 2 and season 3, we're going to try to catch them up. Let's see here. So, some of the stuff, I don't even know where this, okay, so this was 10%, or was 10, now 20 for blood. So these are, I think, all buffs. I think all the set bonus changes are buffs. There's a buff to balance Druid, but I'm not sure. It looks like a buff, but then I was reading in one of the discords, it's actually a nerf from what it was in season 1. Like, I think they changed it from season 1. And then, if I understand this correctly, they like nerfed it after season 1, but now they're buffing the nerfed version of it, I think. Or something. Used to be a free Starfall, Star Surge. Okay, so it used to be Star Surge, Starfall was free, and now it's 15 less astral power. Okay. Aberrus. So this was a buff to the season 2 set bonus. And this was a buff to Preservation's season 1 set bonus. Increase the healing reversion by more than it used to be. And make it longer. And damage and healing of Living Flame increased by quite a bit more. Was 20, is now 50. Then they also just buffed Prez across the board with a critical heals now extend reversion by 2 seconds regardless of haste. I think, actually, I don't know if that's a buffer. I don't even know what the current... I know they fucked around with how reversion crits extend reversion. I don't even know what state it's in now. I don't even know. I don't even know if that's a buff or a nerf. And buff survivals season 1 set. Buff the mage 2 set, I think. They added a bunch of new shit to Mistweaver. This is probably, of all the stuff that got changed in here, this is probably the most eyebrow-raising one. Because I don't think Monk is in a particularly bad spot right now, and all of these things seem like good changes for Monk. But now they get Dance of Chi-Ji, which is the chance for spinning Crane Kick to just proc and deal 300% additional damage. So this will buff Mistweaver AoE by a bit. And healing. Like, this will buff your AoE healing in dungeons. Like, this is probably pointless in raid, but for keys, this will increase Mistweaver damage. I don't know what the proc rate is, but 300% is a nice number. Will this change monk playstyle? So, as I understand it, this could be a potentially big change for monk. Peer into peace. 5% of your overhealing done on targets with Soothing Mist is spread to 3 nearby injured allies, so that seems good, right? But then it says Soothing Mist now follows the target of your Enveloping Mist or Vivify, and its channel time is increased by 4 seconds. So, this is the part where I'm a little confused by exactly what it's doing, because Soothing Mist is rather famously not a thing that you're changing targets with. Like, when you cast Soothing Mist on somebody, you're then casting other spells onto your Soothing Mist target. You're not Soothing Misting one person and then changing targets. That, like, defeated the entire purpose of Soothing Mist. So I don't know what exactly. I think I had seen a suggestion that this is potentially a change to the way that the Jade Serpent statue works, because this is and that would make more sense to me if your Jade Serpent statue was changing its Soothing Mist target following your Enveloping Mist or Vivify. That makes more sense to me than your self-Soothing Mist changing when you Enveloping Mist or Vivify somebody else. But by itself, this talent is a little confusing to me. Resplendent Mist now causes Gust of Mist to have a 30% chance to do 75 or 150%, was 50 to 100%. And Peaceful Mending is now a 1-point talent and increases the healing allies receive from Enveloping Mist and Renewing Mist by 40, was 25% per point. So you used to be able to get up to 50%. Now it's only 40, but it's a 1-point talent instead of 2. So almost certainly a net gain in terms of like talent economy. So all these things seem like straight up buffs to Mistweaver. Which didn't seem like a spec that especially needed buffs. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is there, but Thaz, thank you for the resub, babe. 7 months, appreciate it, and thank you for your continued inclusion in the J-Dot, babes. Then we get Holy Paladin, step bonus rework. Well, not rework, but buffs. So Holy Shock critical healing increased by 80 instead of 60, and Holy Prism healing increased by, oh wow, actually they nerfed the shit out of the Holy Prism healing part. Sheesh. I see. So Holy Prism's healing was increased baseline in Guardians of the Dream, so this bonus is being decreased with that in mind. This will still be an overall power gain compared to Embers of Neltharion. What the fuck are these? What, dude, nobody knows what the fuck this is. What the hell is this? Guardians of the Dream, Embers of Neltharion? What the fuck is that? Don't use the names of the patch or whatever the fuck. Nobody knows what these are. Give me numbers. Guardians of the Dream and Embers of Ice. Dude, I don't think I've ever recalled seeing the phrase Embers of Neltharion or Guardians of the Dream. If you just said that shit without context, if you're like, yo, didn't you think Embers of Neltharion or Guardians of the Dream were a cool patch? I'd be like, what are you fucking talking about? Where's Zul'jin? Who? What are you talking? Zul'jin? Like the server? It's been that way since. Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't have names, but don't refer to them by their fucking names. Nobody knows what the fuck Guardians of the Dream is. Say Holy Prism Healing was increased baseline in 10.1 or 2, or whatever the fuck. I assume that's 10.2. So just say it was increased in 10.2. It'll be a gain compared to 10.1. That's what everyone refers to those patches as. Nobody calls them fucking Guardians of the Dream or Embers and Eltharion. And I don't even feel like I'm quibbling about semantics here. I legitimately would have no idea what the fuck you were talking about if you said Embers of Neltharion without being able to put it in the context of like this developer's note. If you just hit me with a like, yo, do you know what patch Guardians of the Dream was? I'd be like, no, what? Was that a Dragonflight? Like legitimately, I'd be like, was that a Dragonflight thing? I would have no idea. All right, and then they also increased Light's Hammer healing by 20%. So they buffed Holy Paladin, set bonus by a bit. Some big changes to Holy Priest. We'll begin these notes by giving a small fist pump to Leap of Faith no longer interrupting spellcasts, which significantly reduces its griefing ability. Season 4 starts with dungeon rotations of patch 10.2.6. No, 10.2.6 is separate from season. If that's what you're asking. If you're asking if Season 4 is the start of 10.2.6, then no. That comes later. Season 4 does. All right, so Imperial Blaze has been redesigned for like they cannot figure out what the fuck they want to do with Holy Fire. I swear to God, they have changed both Imperial Blaze and the way Holy Fire works like 5 times this expansion. Chastise now causes your next 2 casts of Holy Fire to be instant, cost no mana, and incur no cooldown. It's kind of cool. Refreshing Holy Fire on a target now extends its duration by 7 seconds. Pontifex has been redesigned. Flash heal, prayer of healing, and circle of healing. Increase healing done by your next holy word spell by 6%, stacking up to 5 times. Last 30 seconds. I don't even remember what these spells do. Let me pull up a talent tree real quick. I recognize these names, but I don't remember what they do. So what's current Pontifex? It's all right, so critical heals increase healing done by your next holy word spell by 20%. Okay, so this is attempting to make Pontifex less of a single target talent and increase its it's a bit less powerful per cast, but is designed to loop in more of your spells now. So instead of it only being flash heal and heal, it's now includes prayer of healing and circle of healing. And yeah, less reliance on crit. Now I have not, that doesn't actually well, it probably makes it more useful for holy trees that go more left side here and lean into your AoE heal, but I feel like it probably makes it less good for any build that's focusing on single target healing. It feels like a nerf if you are trying to do the old like flash concentration style of healing. Holy Fire mana cost reduced by a decent chunk. All healing reduced. They kind of buried the lead on this one, by the way. They talk about these talent redesigns, and then they're like, by the way, we're nerfing all healing done by 7%. Let's see. Lightwell has been redesigned. Creates a holy Lightwell. Every second, the Lightwell will attempt to heal. And by the way, how many times have you seen this phrase throughout the history of World of Warcraft? Has any spell been the subject of this sentence more often since the dawn of World of Warcraft? Lightwell has been redesigned. Stop me if you've heard this before. Every second, Lightwell will attempt to heal a nearby party or raid member within 40 yards that is lower than 50% health and apply a renew to them for 6 seconds. Lightwell lasts for 2 minutes or until it heals 15 times. Cooldown reduced by 3 seconds when you cast. Okay. So they're kind of putting it into this. This seems to be a theme for Holy Priest, that your shit gets reduced by holy words. So okay, it becomes a renew spammer when people get low health. I guess that could be nice. On a mechanic where your party now in modern WoW, I don't know how often people actually dip below 50% health for more than 1 second during raid, but we'll see. Resonant words now causes holy words to increase the healing done by next flash heal, prayer of healing, or circle of healing. Okay, so what did resonant words do? Where was that? Resonant words. Casting a holy word spell increases the healing from your flash. Okay, so they're redesigning this little branch to include more of your heals, less of, like, not strictly single target anymore. Pontifex and resonant words are now including prayer of healing and circle of healing. Divine Word now increases the healing of your next Holy Word spell by 30, was 50. Casting Holy Word Chastise with Divine Word active now increases the damage dealt by 20 and refunds 15 seconds from Chastise instead of its previous. That's like, that feels like a nerf, right? If I remember right, Divine Word with Chastise used to be a banger. What does it do with Chastise? Increase damage by 50%, and Smite has a 40% chance to apply Holy Fire. 15 seconds. So it goes to 20% instead of 30? Yeah. And it refunds 15 seconds from the cooldown of Chastise instead of making Smite have a 40% chance. Okay, so what's the CD of Chastise? 1 minute cooldown. Eesh. But reduce when you cast Smite. Well, I'm not really sure. That's a lot of changes. Healing Chorus now increases a healing of Circle of Healing by 5%, stacking up to 20, was 2%, stacking up to 50. Okay, increasing some more AoE healing. Powerful Litany now heals for 100% more to the most injured ally. The fuck is powerful, or prayerful, excuse me, prayerful Litany. Litany. Okay. Harmonious Apparatus has been renamed to Voice of Harmony. Okay. Yeah, it was a little weird that they carried forward some of the legendaries and didn't change their name. I don't know. Voice of Harmony now causes Holy Nova to reduce the cooldown of Chastise in addition to Holy Fire. Okay. So let's see. Gale of Song is now 1 point talent with the values of the previous. That's the that's this one down here, right? Gales of Song, yeah. Okay, so 15% more Divine Hymn healing and stacks of Divine Hymn increase healing taken by an additional. Does that go to 2%? 2% per stack. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, sure. Let's buff Divine Hymn. That's fine. Divine Service now has a connection to Say Your Prayers. Okay. The fuck is Divine Service? Okay. So we can skip the Prayer of Mending. Final 3 rows of the talent tree have been reorganized. Cool. Whatever the fuck that means. Excellent. I feel like somebody was doing these patch notes on like a Friday afternoon, and they were like, God damn, okay, yeah, blah, 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 blah. They get through all these priest notes, and they finally get down to like this one, and they're getting ready to leave. Like, they're like, okay, I got dinner reservations in 20 minutes. And then they see the bottom of the talent tree has been reorganized, and they're like, well, I could either spend 20 minutes actually typing up what everything does now, or I could just say they've all been reorganized and get the fuck out of here. What patch notes are these? These are the 10.2.6 patch notes. All right, so shadow set bonus, 2-piece, 40% was 30, 18% was 15, 100% was 80, so all of these are buffs. Resto Shaman got buffs on its set bonus. Destro got buffs on its set bonus. Warrior got buffs on its set bonus. Fury got buffs on its set bonus. So, okay. Seems like pretty much every set bonus got buffed. Then, I mean, of all the changes that were made, they were all buffs to set bonuses. This is probably the most interesting part of the changes for Season 4 so far. It says, Raid loot from Vault and Aberrus have received several adjustments to align with changes made in Amirdrasil. So class set tokens will drop at a ratio of 1 to 3 relative to non-token items. So they're reducing the number of tier tokens you'll see. And then all very rare items have a separate chance to drop in addition to a boss's standard quantity of loot. So it's not an either-or proposition. You're not getting a very rare item or something else. You can get a very rare item and other shit. So it's like its own little mini loot table on each boss. Then several raid trinkets have been adjusted. Chill Globe mana restoration effect has been reduced by 70%. So given the changes they made to other mana trinkets, Chill Globe was probably overperforming at its eye level. So they've nerfed the shit out of how much mana you get back from Chill Globe. Icon, the amount of stats it gave to allies reduced by 45%. So that's probably a pretty substantial nerf to how good Icon is. But necessary to keep this from being a required item in Season 4. This is actually a very cool change. It's one thing I was lamenting when I was looking through what trinkets we're going to use is we're going to get Ward back and we're going to lose Leaf. Now, I wasn't I wasn't a Leaf user, but I know some people liked it. And one of the things about Leaf that made it especially useful was it's a 1-minute CD, so you could use it frequently. And Ward is a very meaty shield, but it's a 2-minute CD, which means you only get to probably use it 2 times a fight at most, so you better get really good fucking value out of it when you use it. But they have since changed it to be a 1-minute CD, which I think was a really good change for Ward, and represents a very drastic change from the original version of this trinket. When this thing was first launched, it was a 3-minute cooldown. It was a 3-minute absorb. I actually, I know, I talked to Skarzard. I think he was the author of this trinket, and I remember he was in the stream at one point, and I was like, bro, you can't have absorb trinkets on a 3-minute CD, man. Like that just, there's no way that you're gonna feel like you're getting value out of a 3-minute on use absorb. Absorb trinkets lose value the longer you put on their CD. You want to be able to get those things out a lot more frequently. And then they changed that tier from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, and now they've changed it from 2 minutes to 1. So this is both an encouraging change for this trinket in particular, but maybe also longer term to the extent that they continue making absorb trinkets. This may be a lesson learned. That an absorb trinket needs to have a relatively low cooldown to feel useful. Because in most cases, you don't need an absorb to like keep someone at like full health. I don't, you know, if you made like a 5-minute absorb trinket and it gave you a fucking 3 million shield, I don't give a fuck. I don't need a 3 million shield. What I need an absorb trinket to do is keep someone from dying, even if that's only by like 5 hit points. I just need enough of an absorb that an otherwise lethal mechanic no longer kills you. And I would much rather have a relatively smaller absorb that I can use frequently to put on people so that instead of you being overkilled by 50k, you now live with 70k HP. And then, ta-da, I can keep saving your life over and over and over again. I would much rather that over, you know, a 2 or 3 minute CD where I use it on you and instead of dying, you now live with like 70% health. Because I didn't give a shit if you live with 70% health. I just needed you to not die. Whether that was with 70% health or 7% health is sort of irrelevant. So I think hopefully both in this particular case of Ward, but also ideally going forward with absorb trinkets in the future, I'm hoping that this is a change that we see continued into future tiers where we just see cooldown or absorb trinkets have a relatively low cooldown. I think anything longer than about a minute and a half, and I'm starting to be like, this better be a really cool absorb effect if it's longer than a minute and a half. All right, enduring jet plate, celestial plating. I don't even know what the fuck this trinket did. It's tank trinket. Chromatic essence, shared alignment, secondary stat reduced by 5%. So a small nerf to OCE's group buff. Blossom buffed by 10%. Rage Heart actually buffed as a defensive trinket. Nerfed a bit as a damage trinket. Its absorb effect is increased by 5%. Its on-use damage decreased by 5%, and its passive AoE damage reduced by 20%. This was at least for like when I use it, what up, Marina? At least as a passive trinket, this did not do very much of my damage. I think this part of the effect was like maybe like 1.5% of my damage each time. So a 20% reduction to this is like whatever. Then this is the most intriguing part of the patch notes. The following dungeon trinkets have been significantly reworked, but they don't actually say what changes they made to them. They've just said they've been reworked. Now, this comes on the heels of I remember when Blizzard seemingly confirmed that the Dragonflight dungeons were going to be the dungeons for next season. Somebody asked, okay, so are there any good trinkets that we're going to get from dungeons? And I looked back through them, and the conclusion I came to was, fuck no. Pretty much all the trinkets from the Dragonflight dungeons were dog shit. Especially the healer ones. The only trinket I think that stood out among trinkets that we might use for healing, or as a healer, was Rage Feather. That was like the only, that and maybe Singing Stone as an absorb trinket, but basically every other trinket sucked. So the conclusion of that, bro, stop saying raid in my chat. You raided me with one fucking viewer, okay? Like, I'm gonna fucking, here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna fucking like ban you from my chat here in a second. That one viewer is your sister. Hello, Marina's sister. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for supporting your brother's work. All right. So anyway, the trinkets that got changed are. Let's have a look. She left because she doesn't know this game. Well, she's smarter than the rest of us, I guess. Tome of Unstable Power. That's the one that puts the crit buff on the floor, I think. That was a Azure Vault trinket, I believe. So yeah, that's the one that numerically might have been good, but in practice was like kind of a shit trinket. She plays Roblox Obby. So do my kids, actually. Maybe I'll have them start streaming, and she can. Maybe I'll let them stream on my account sometime, and they can play Roblox, and she can come back and watch relevant content. Can I check if cleanse is castable in cat form? Like right now, it's definitely not, because if you're asking like if that's gonna be like a thing that would change in 10.2.6, I don't have 10.2.6 yet on EU. All right, so we have Tome of Unstable Power getting whatever the fuck significant rework means. But this is the one that dropped a big crit strike, or a big primary stat buff on the floor, but also decreased your critical strike. The rune that is summoned was not especially big. So all in all, it was an interesting trinket, but one of those things where it was like, it was not a big enough buff to warrant how much of a pain in the ass it was to use. It was a 3-minute CD, which is a pretty long CD. It buffed your primary stat, but decreased your crit. And then it required you to stand in a spot. So, first off, in order to get good value out of this, you were probably going to have to try to coordinate cooldowns with the rest of your group. Like, you were probably going to be like, hey, I'm going to drop this trinket soon. Make sure you hold cooldowns for it. No shot that's happening. No shot that your group is actually playing around this fucking trinket, which automatically makes it less valuable. And then secondly, you have to drop it on a spot on the ground, which, unless you're in raid, is probably going to be really annoying. Because if you're in like a dungeon, unlikely that every member of your group is going to stand on the same spot. And it's a relatively small, I think it was like maybe like a 5-yard radius or something. This was not a particularly large rune that you were creating. So now you're obligating your group to stand in this zone. And so I'm happy that this is getting reworked. This was definitely a trinket that had sort of an interesting premise, but in practice was unwieldy. They're also doing Umbral Skull's Fractured Heart, which is that your abilities have a chance to crystallize your target, inflicting arcane damage over 12 seconds. And if the target dies while crystallized, they explode, doing arcane damage. This, honestly, is not a terrible concept. It just had, like, the tuning on it was dog shit. I remember, I think I got this trinket early on in the season, in Season 1, and I was like, well, let's try it out to see if it's a worthwhile DPS trinket. And, like, even on a healer, it was doing fuck all damage. So I'm not even sure this one needed reworked. It just needed a large buff in terms of the amount of damage it's doing. Then let's see what else. Globe of Jagged Ice. That's a Halls of Infusion trinket, if I remember correctly. Harmful spells and abilities have a chance to impale the target with a shard of Jagged Ice, stacking up to 4. And then on use, it shatters all of them, dealing frost damage split between nearby enemies. So, okay. That's like a weird agi trinket. It's weird that it's an agi trinket that says your harmful spells and abilities. I feel like there's very few classes that are agi classes that have spells. I guess there's a few, probably. Well, I guess I don't know, maybe I'm being weird with how I consider spells. I guess if you were like a feral druid, you would have spells. If you're a monk, you'd have spells, things like that. All right, here you go, Marina. I can't tell if you're a very good troll. Thank you, Kelly. That was either extremely good trolling or extremely ignorant behavior. And it's hard to... That was either masterclass trolling or very obnoxious behavior. And I'm not sure which. The comments about the sister were actually pretty funny, and I thought he was trolling, but then doing the rating thing for a third time is... all right, so Globe of Jagged Ice, a rework for that. It's not going to affect us at all. Water's Beating Heart. Okay, thank you. This might be the most worthless trinket I've seen in a dungeon in... I don't know if there's been like a shittier healing trinket in dungeons, maybe ever. Not only was it not especially good, it also combined all of like the worst elements of a healing trinket. The only thing working in its favor is the fact that it was a primary stat trinket, so at least you got a bunch of int from it. But the on use, it's a 2-minute cooldown, so it's long cooldown, don't like that. Relatively long, at least. It increases an ally's armor by 5,500. Who gives a shit about increasing armor? Like, that makes it almost definitionally a tank healing trinket, and I don't know that there's been an expansion where tank healing has mattered less than this expansion. So the fact that it increases an ally's armor makes it fucking weird to begin with. Then it heals them over 8 seconds. Not even like a burst of healing. It puts a relatively weak hot on the tank for 8 seconds. So like, that's fucking weird. And then it increases the effects are increased based on current health. So if the tank gets below 20%, but like, I'm not exactly trying to use this on a tank that's like low health. I don't know, like just a very confusing trinket. And even if it was strong, I would... Oh, 5,000 armor is probably 25% physical DR? No shot. How much armor do I have right now? I have 5,000 right now, starting from 0. The first 5,000 armor that I have is 17%. And it DRs a lot quicker after that. So even if you started from 0% DR, or 0% armor, which you wouldn't, even if you started from 0, best case you're looking at probably getting like just under 20%. Like, this is probably 18% armor if I had 0. Going to bear form. All right, so with bear form, which gives me 17,000 armor, so going up an additional 12,000-ish armor, I increase 20%-ish more physical DR. So giving me 5,000 armor, I mean, I have relatively low armor as a leather wearer. If you gave me another 5,000 on top of this, you're probably looking at increasing my armor by maybe 10 to 15%. And if you put this on a plate-wearing tank, that's going to be like... Giving them 5,000 more armor is going to increase their physical DR by like 5% or some shit. Regardless, giving armor to people, like physical DR, is like the most worthless kind of DR. Most things that are lethal in this game, in dungeons and raid, are not physical damage. Because Blizzard knows that there are a lot of classes that have ways to excessively mitigate physical damage. If something is physical damage, me going to bear form makes me virtually immune to it. Same with any plate-wearing class, especially a plate-wearing class with a shield. If you try to hit them with physical damage, they are going to mitigate the fucking bejesus out of it compared to magic damage. So most lethal types of damage in this game are magic, like definitionally. Very few times that you're in danger of dying from physical damage to begin with. So all in all, the Beating Heart was just a really weird trinket. It wasn't good, and like numerically it wasn't good, and conceptually it wasn't good. So reworking that one is, I was honestly a bit shocked that this one was not reworked. Well, I'm a bit shocked that it was released at all in its original form. I feel like this felt like a trinket that it should have existed in classic WoW when nobody knew what anything did. Like when developers were just making shit up. Back when, you know, like tier sets had spirit on them for warriors and shit like that. And it was and shit literally just made no sense. That's what this trinket feels like. It feels like a trinket from 18 years ago. So I was confused when it came out, and then I was confused when they made like no changes to it. So seeing that get reworked, that's good. It'll probably still be a healer oriented trinket, which will make it likely not anything I'm interested in, but at least maybe it'll be useful as a healing trinket. Grandest enduring scale, that is, where's Nokud? That's a tank trinket. And then resonator, I don't even know, what is that? Oldemon? Yeah. That is a tank trinket. Gives you stamina, falling below health, activates something that gives you a chance to counterattack with fire damage and absorb the next blank damage that you take. I don't know. And then the following trinkets have been adjusted. Searing Embers, that's the crit. That's one of the triggers off crit, right? Or has crit, yeah. Helpful spells and abilities have a chance to create a burning ember. The ember flares up, cauterizing, so it does healing and then deals damage. So its chance to trigger was doubled, damage reduced by 50%, and healing reduced by 40%. Additionally, fixed an issue that could cause inconsistent proc behavior. Okay. Singing Stone shield effect increased by 3%. Okay. This was actually a relatively good healing trinket, numbers-wise. This is the one where it puts a shield on one person for like 8 or 10 seconds, and then when that expires, it bounces to 4 other people. The numbers on it were actually pretty good. I remember this being a useful raid trinket season 1, but it's a little awkward to use it because of the fact that it goes on one person and then splits onto 4 people. It was like weird to use it like that. So I don't know if it'll. I still don't think we're going to play it necessarily, but at least I guess they're buffing a little bit. And then mutated Mag Mammoth scale now scales with haste and damage reduced by 13%. So I guess that's probably, I think it's just they've made it hasted and reduced damage to account for that. New glyphs have been added to transform appearance of the recently updated Covenant abilities back to their old Covenant visuals. So if you don't like the look of, you know, some things got like Phaline Stomp, now Jade Fire Stomp. If you want Phaline back, Adaptive Swarm if you want old Adaptive Swarm back. There were a few, I think the Mage thing. Fuck is that called? Oh yeah, New Convoke. All right. Okay. So I think that's just about everything. It's weird Mistweaver's getting buffed, or you just bad at reading comprehension? So the thing to keep in mind with the monk changes is that they are changes to talents. And it's easy to look at this and be like, oh my god, look at all this new shit Mistweaver's getting, but you have to keep in mind there's opportunity cost to all of this. I'm not trying to be like a monk apologist at this point, but when you have like new talents, It's easy to read this and go, oh my God, they're getting Chi G. It's like, cool, yeah, but they have to give something up to get that. Now, I don't know if that'll, and if they put fucking Chi G at the top of their tree, there's probably some shit you could get rid of that you would be more than happy to get rid of for that. But some of this other stuff like soothing mist buffs, I think it's easy to sort of miss that this is a new talent. You're going to have to give up an old talent point to take these things. And even like Resplendent Mist, this is a talent. So you're going to have to put points into it to get the value of this. Peaceful Mending, talent, rework. So these aren't just straight buffs to Monk. They're buffs. They're either new talents or buffs to existing talents that you probably weren't. I mean, in this case, you obviously weren't taking these because they don't exist. In this case, you probably weren't taking these talents with certain builds anyway. I think they're trying to just buff underused talents. So this look like it. Obviously, Mistweaver's in a very good spot right now, and it's easy to look at this and be like, "What the fuck? They're making Monk better," but it's like, it's not necessarily better. They're giving him new talents, but that comes at the cost of something. So you have to weigh this against what you're giving up to get it, and we don't know what that'll be yet. I don't know where this ends up on the tree. All right. I need to use the bathroom for a sec. I'll be right back. Oh, okay. They did say they were moving EF, so it could be today that they remove it. Nah, that'll be a that's a War Within thing. They're not gonna move that till next expansion. Did I also get paid to shill Battle Royale? Oh, holy shit, that would be lit, wouldn't it? How did I like Doom Part 2? Oh man. Uh Doom Part 2. I admittedly did not see the first Dune in theaters, which I now regret. Um Dune Part 2 might be the most what would be the term I would use? Like overhyped. No, it's definitely not that. Uh the most like it was a cinematic experience, really. And it was actually probably the acting that I was least impressed by in the movie. I felt like there were some relatively middle of the road acting performances, but in terms of the cinematography and the scoring, it was one of the most impressive theater experiences that I could imagine. The That was definitely a movie that I think you would miss out on a big part of the director's intent if you did not see it in a theater. And the many part like there were many moments in the movie where if I didn't have like the sound system of the theater there to capture the uh I mean bass was like a lot of it. But if I didn't have like theater quality speakers there, I would have it would have cheapened those moments. Um and there were definitely some points in that movie where like in real time I was like, holy fuck, I am witnessing like movie history right now. And I'm not a person that gets super worked up about movies. In fact, I wanted to go see Dune 2, but I was a little worried that I'd be let down by it. Like I mean, I knew it was going to be a good movie, but it was one of those things where you hear so much about it in the press that I was worried that when I actually went to go see it, I would be somewhat let down by it. Um, but there were definitely, I would say the middle of the movie was probably the most memorable part of it. The last like third of the movie, I actually kind of was like, this felt like it sort of, um, like it sort of fumbled it a little bit at the end. But basically any scene with the Harkonnens, um, it was just it's fucking gorgeous, and it did a good job of evoking emotional responses. Um, the combination of visuals and audio did a fantastic job of making me feel stuff. in the scenes, and it's hard to do that, especially at home, I think. But in the theater, it was a lot like an amusement park ride in terms of I just felt a constant sense of something throughout the movie. So a very I think a very historic movie. I think Villeneuve's directing magnum opus. That shit was, I mean, it is really impressive. So I'm very glad we went. And I'm very glad we went in the theater and didn't watch. I've actually seen Dune Part 1 a couple times at home. And I still enjoyed it quite a bit at home, but now I almost wish they would have re-released Part 1 in theaters, because I would have loved to go back and see that on the big screen. But yeah, the scoring to that movie was like, there were times where I almost felt like I was being manipulated, because there would be audio that went along with something, and it was almost triggering like automatic instinctive responses in my brain, and I was like, stop, how, it's not fair that you can just play that note and you can make me feel a way. I don't even have like it's not even conscious. It's like some fucking lizard response to that. That you can just play that shit whenever you want and you're going to get that fucking feeling out of me. It's not fair. But yeah, it made me, what it really made me want to do is go home and fucking invest in a home theater. Like a fucking legit $15,000 home theater. Just pick a room in the house, go buy a fucking 85-inch OLED, hook up 13 fucking speakers, get some stadium seating installed in there. Dude, I want to be able to do this with other movies whenever I want. They invented an instrument to use? Yeah, I could believe it. Do it when the kids are at school. I actually remember when I was living in Topeka, I had a buddy buy a house. It's a pretty nice house. And he was taking me on a tour of it the first time. And we're walking around looking at rooms. And I was like, yeah, dude, this place is very legit. And he's like, hang on, I saved the best for last. And I was like, And there's a room at the end of a hallway, rather nondescript. And we, the doorway that is, and we walk into it, and it was a room that had been converted into a home theater. And it was the last guy that lived there had done all of it. And the guy had set up a projector, like a full wall screen with a projector and a little back room where he had all the audio equipment configured and wired and speakers hooked up all over the room. And I was like, what the fuck? And he's like, right? Right? And we had like one day in there where we just watched a shitload of movies just to do it. And what I really appreciated it for was anytime there was a big sporting event, like Super Bowl, or if we were watching like any UFC fights or whatever, he'd invite everybody over to his place and we'd watch it in that room. And it was definitely cool to be able to watch live sports on a screen that big. Type 2, thank you for the resub, babe. 9 months. Appreciate it. Congratulations on our J.Baby, and thank you for your continued inclusion in the J.Babes. Ready for the Battle Royale grind tomorrow? Well, the unfortunate part about the 10.2.6 launch is they managed to actually pick a fucking push week to do it. Had they launched this a week ago or a week later, I probably, out of boredom, would have spammed the shit out of Battle Royale. But they picked this week to do it. And this is actually the one good push week sandwiched among a bunch of bullshit on either side of it. And I think we'll be doing keys most of the week. Gift, thank you for the sub, babe. Appreciate it, and welcome to the J.Babes. How do you heal time waves as resto? A lot of time waves is learning how to move on the fight. I stand close to the boss, and I try to always move counterclockwise and just basically hug. When the orbs start coming out, I just try to like hug the edge of the orb and kind of follow it around the boss counterclockwise. And then another large portion of the fight is your group knowing what to do as well. So the debuffs come out, you got to dispel someone quickly. And ideally, you will have coordinated before the key started what order you're going to dispel people. For like my standard group, which is me, a Shadow Priest, a Mage, and an Evoker, the dispel order is me, Evoker, Mage, Shadow Priest, I think. And so whoever's getting dispelled first knows to go get in the light zone. And then you dispel them as quickly as possible. It's very important they do not move when they're being dispelled, because if they move as they're being dispelled, they'll get double ticked and die. So that's a large part of it, is just people knowing not to move when they're dispelled, knowing who should be standing in the light zone, and more importantly, when you're not getting ready to be dispelled, you need to be not standing in the light zone. Stand in the dark zone as much as possible, except when it's time to be dispelled. And then you dispel the first person, and then the key after that is to heal up the other people that do not have the debuff on them. Once you've dispelled the first person, the people most in danger of dying from that point on are the two other people that still need to be dispelled, or still need to be the two other people that do not need to be dispelled, because they're about to get hit with more damage. The person that still has a debuff at that point only needs to have enough health to survive until he gets dispelled, because they're not going to take any extra damage relative to the rest of the group, but the other people are going to get hit by another orb wave. So you want to make sure to heal up the non-debuffed people in between the first dispel and the second one, and do just enough healing to the other debuff target to keep them alive long enough for them to get naturally dispelled by the debuff rolling off. And then mostly you just need to have everybody actually use defenses each time. That fight is probably the fight that is most transformed by your group knowing what the fuck to do and when to press their buttons than any other fight in Mythic Plus this season. If you do it with a group that doesn't know what's going on and doesn't help you out with defenses, they'll get shredded every time. And if you play with a group that knows what to do, where to stand, when to stand there, and when to use cooldowns, the fight almost feels trivial at times. There's been a few times where I've done like a 30 tyrannical where I'm just kind of going like, man, what the hell? Like, why is nobody taking any damage? How am I in game? I'm on EU. New dungeons this week? Nope. They still have not announced when season 4 is going to start, other than to say it is still at least several weeks away. But season 4 is when we'll get new dungeons, and 10.2.6 is not season 4. Class tuning goes live today? Yeah, I believe that's a change for 10.2.6. Playing Ellie and your guild's not happy with you? Yeah, I suppose it hasn't been a great expansion for Ellie Shaman. Petco's loving it. I remember I was actually doing keys with Petco periodically in season 1 and the start of season 2. And I remember we were in a group that had been playing together for like a week or two right before AUG came out. And it became obvious after AUG came out that Shaman's spot in a group as the Bloodluster was now dead. And Echo tried to make Shaman still work for like a week after AUG came out. And then it became very clear that that was not going to be acceptable. And he started playing AUG. And then I basically never heard from him again for the rest of the expansion. I don't think we've done another key together since that point. When does season 4 go live, the dungeons? They haven't announced yet. I think the expectation is probably at least a month from now, but probably no more than like 2 months from now. I'd expect late April at the earliest, late May at the latest. Oh, dinars have been data mined? Oh, let's have a look here. Oh, let's see. They have the season 4. God damn it, dude. Like, why do they? I don't even understand why they do this shit. Why would you make ground mounts? Like, Teddy, thank you for the resub, babe. 6 months. Appreciate it. Congratulations on your new purple Omega Babe sub icon. And thank you for your continued inclusion in the J-Dot, babes. Oh, well, whatever. Okay, so we've got season 4 total cap of 1 dinar. Okay. Says, though we don't have any details on how this currency will be acquired just yet, it's safe to bet they'll be earned through a weekly quest to defeat bosses similar to Shadowlands. Interestingly, the string also indicates a cap of 1 as opposed to 3, although it's unclear if that is a reduction of the total number or a temporary cap that increments over time. I kind of can't believe they're only going to give you 1 fucking dinar over the season. Mistweaver buff tomorrow? Should be, yeah. I think those changes are coming in 10.2.6, which is this week. If they only give us 1, it's going to feel like a slap in the face. Yeah, 1 is like... there's no way it's 1. There's no way they give you 1 item. Now, having said that, 1 might be honestly fine for my purposes. The only things I really want to be able to dinar out of the raid are probably going to be trinkets and weapons. And I don't even know if there's a raid weapon I especially give a shit about on Druid. What even... there was the one-hander off Razageth that was higher eye level. I wonder how they're... Actually, you know, I didn't think about that. I wonder how they're going to do eye levels in Raid next season, because eye levels from Raid have not been consistent this expansion. Razageth shit was 3 eye levels higher than some of the other things in the Raid. I wonder if they're going to reduce this to being the same as, like, stuff off Kurog and Defea. I bet they do. Which, if that's the case, this weapon is no longer worth using on Druid. It used to be potentially worth using in Season 1 because it was 3 eye levels higher. And you had a good offhand from Kurog. But if it's not higher eye level, there's no real point in using it. So you would probably use... If they do the same thing where everything is leveled up to the same mythic track, then this Seisma Staff will probably be good. Haste Verse. The Empty Promise will still be high haste, low mastery, so that'd be decent to use, especially if you want to mix it. Like, next season, we're probably going to have more mastery in our gear, whether or not you want mastery, because we will be getting so many secondary stats that you're going to be DRing a bunch of shit. I'm already at the point where I have almost DR'd haste and verse. Or I'm at almost at 20% haste DR and almost into the 10% verse DR. And that's with running almost 3k mastery. So next season we'll start running into even more secondary caps. So maybe you want to add a little bit of mastery in, so Erathos won't be bad. But again, that was a weapon you used last season because it was higher eye level. It wouldn't be anything special now. It would just be a two-hander, basically. And then Amir Drasil, I don't, you know, I guess, like, maybe you would... I guess if all the weapons are the same eye level, you would probably want Nimaway. The only reason we're not using Dreambinder right now is because Iridol exists, and if Iridol's not in the dungeon pool next season, then this probably becomes your best. Wait, is Iridol? I thought it was. Wait, do the Dawns count as? I guess I saw that article and assumed that meant no Dawn. But is Dawn in there? No Dawn, right? Yeah. So Nimue is probably the best bet. It's got good stats and it's got the damage on use. So that will probably be what. That'll probably be one thing to use. Well, it'll be an especially good. It'll be an especially good dinar use because it's a very rare item. So it'll be not only a valuable thing to have, but it'll be hard to get your hands on. So probably a dinar for Dreambinder, and then otherwise probably a dinar, assuming it's still worth using, which I don't know after the nerf, if it still occupies the same kind of insane value as before, but maybe a dinar for Icon for the same reason, really strong and really hard to get a hold of. Maybe... I don't think I'll use Beacon next season. I think it'll do a lot of damage, but it's a secondary stat instead of a primary, so even if it does a lot of damage, I think you'd rather just use Valorlos, I think. Or even, like, maybe Augury. I wouldn't be surprised if Augury does, like, the same amount of overall damage as Beacon, but it isn't a non-use. Rage Heart plus Rash Shock. No, you got to remember, they nerfed the shit out of Rash Shock. And those nerfs are for sure going to get carried forward. Like, that Rash Shock will not be what it was in Season 2. It'll be the nerfed version of itself, which will... Rash Shock was already not a trinket you were especially wanting to run in dungeons. It was sick for raid, and it was so broken that even though it wasn't the kind of trinket you would traditionally want to run in dungeons, it was so fucking powerful that you would tend to use it anyway. But things like Icon and OCE are going to provide more value to the group, and maybe even more value to you. And then if you were looking for like a damage trinket, you would run, Beacon or Valorlos or Augury or something. So yeah, Rage Heart is probably still going to get a lot of use next season. Now, actually, the trinket that became, I think, a lot more interesting for next season is because of the change they announced to it. In the patch notes today, they said that ward is being reduced to a 1-minute cooldown, and then they're nerfing the effect to account for the fact that it's a 1-minute CD, but that makes it tremendously more usable as a defensive trinket. And if your ward is basically... it's going to be, I think, better than Leaf. It's a intellect trinket instead of a mastery trinket. It's a 1-minute CD instead of a minute and a half. Or wait, was Leaf a minute or a minute and a half? Oh, it's 1 minute. Okay, so it's a 1 minute. Leaf suffers from the fact that it gives you verse after it procs. So the shield is relatively weaker to account for the fact that you also get a buff. I don't think most people give a shit. Like, I think if you're using Leaf in a lot of cases, you're not necessarily super... I mean, the verse buff is obviously nice, but it's probably not why you're running Leaf. So I think Ward is actually just like an improvement on that idea of I want to run a trinket to keep people alive. And if that's the case, the amount of, like, even at 450i level, it was doing, well, I guess it's a 2-minute CD instead of a... So what do they announce for this, for the Ward? What was the change that they made to it? Where was that? Ward. Okay, so its absorb is reduced by 35%, and its damage is reduced by 50%. So let's see here. Wowhead. Why are there so many things with faceless in the name? What the fuck? Okay, if we increase this to 4, okay, what? How much is eye level going up? Is it? They said it was 39 again, right? So currently, shit is 49, so it would be 528 next season. So if we take this to 528, or I guess I'll just compare it to current. So if this was a 49 trinket, it would be absorbing fucking 630,000. God damn. Okay. So the current absorb effect on it would be roughly 625,000 damage. So they're cutting this to a 1-minute CD. They're nerfing this by 35%, which would mean that instead of, let's say, 625,000 times 0.65. So it would be instead of a 625,000 shield, it would be a little over 400,000 compared to Leaf, which was doing like 200 some thousand, I think. Yeah, Leaf is 227, so that's almost double the amount of absorb that Leaf is doing, and it's primary stat instead of secondary. So if your goal is just to have an absorb trinket, Ward will be a lot better than Leaf was. Like a lot better than Leaf was. Much bigger absorb, more useful stat on it. It also does damage. I don't know how much. I don't think it was an especially good amount of damage. It was 46,000 to the last enemy to strike it. That's getting nerfed by 50%. So that would have been currently 80,000. Oh yeah, so that's like a that's like a piss small amount of damage. But I could actually even see you running this over. I could see this being a replacement for being a replacement for Rage Heart if you didn't want to run Rage Heart, because the absorb from this will be quite a bit smaller than Rage Heart was, but most of the time you don't need the full absorb from Rage Heart. It's a massive fucking shield. You don't normally need that whole thing to live. This would allow you to use a shield more often, 1 minute instead of a minute and a half, and it would allow you to use it on other people and not just yourself. Now you'd give up a decent chunk of damage for doing that, but that probably serves the group better to be able to use it on other people and not just yourself. Because realistically, the number of times you actually like need Rage Heart and a key to live is pretty small. And even then, it's usually overkill. So that might actually end up being a more useful trinket than Rage Heart. And it gives you int instead of verse. And next season, like I said, we're going to be... Secondary stats will be becoming less and less valuable each season because it'll be harder and harder to keep your stats under their DRs. So a trinket that's giving you a lot of secondaries is going to become less and less valuable as you get more and more secondary stats overall. So I can actually see Writhing Ward ending up being a useful trinket in a lot of sets. You won't have to fight for that one either. That is definitely a healer trinket. And you don't even have to fight tanks for that one. Or no, I guess you do have to fight tanks for that one. It's I thought it was an int trinket, but it's an everybody trinket. What the fuck? But I don't think most people in your raid are going to want this. It does like no damage, unlike Rage Heart, which does a good amount of damage and is tuned to be good for tanks. This will not be a good amount of absorb for a tank, and the amount of damage it's going to do is pretty shitty. So this will probably only be fought for among healers, or maybe if you have DPS in your raid that do Mythic Plus at a really high level, maybe they'll want this for themselves for survivability, but I doubt it. But yeah, anyway, this all started because we're asking what you would use Dinars on, and I think it would. I don't even, like I said, unless you you could buy Dreambinder with it. I think that would be the best use of it on a weapon. I don't think any of the other weapons are worth mentioning, and Dreambinder is very rare. So probably a Dinar on Dreambinder, and then a trinket, unless I'm forgetting some item that has an on-use effect on it, or you know, if there was a Diurna's Chosen that you really wanted, which, I mean, those are not good stats for Resto Druid. It's heavy verse, which isn't bad, but then you have crit, and you don't really want crit. But I could definitely see people using a Dinar on this. On this. Oops. Ooh, I forgot about Seal of Filial Duty. But you have to deal fire damage to proc it. Are those your two rings next season? You swear Filial Duty and Diurna's Chosen? Oh, no, wait. For some reason, I was thinking that this dealt fire damage, but you still have to deal fire damage to ignite your enemies. You may end up running Rage Feather. I can see this now. You may end up running, or Rage Heart. You may end up running Rage Heart just to proc your rings. You may wear these two rings and then run Rage Feather just to proc them. I keep saying fucking Rage Feather. Run Rage Heart just to proc them. Because the Rage Heart does the constant... I don't know why I clicked that. Does the constant... Fuck is Rage Heart? Does the constant ticking Shadow Flame damage every 3 seconds, which includes fire damage. So it would have a chance to proc both of those rings. And Filial Duty would actually be a decent... How much in absorb was that? It was 63,000 at 430 eye level, so that would be the equivalent of... Let's see... 100 and... be almost 150,000 damage at this tier. And it procs twice a minute. Yeah, that seems like it'd be pretty good. Okay. Well, maybe you use your Dinars on that shit. Huh. There's suddenly... I was thinking I wasn't going to have that many things I wanted to use Dinars on next season, but actually maybe there's a lot of things I want to use fucking Dinars on next season. Jarun will be another popular one. Not for healers, but be another popular Dinar. Oh yeah, I forgot the Voice of the Silent Star was in there. I feel like that... I don't know. I feel like nobody ended up using that in meaningful content because the lack of stamina just killed it. There's going to be a lot of jewelry that has a chance to proc off of fire damage. You could wear a neck. Dude, actually, if you wear all the shit that procs off fire damage, you're going to have, like, no haste in your gear. Because the neck is verse crit, the ring is verse crit, and the other ring is mastery haste. Oh, wow. That one's not that good anyway, I don't think. Doesn't proc nearly enough. And it only does nature damage, so I don't think I'd chase that. I already have it and I don't use it. Holy Priest can be broken. Well, there's a lot of changes to Holy Priest, some of which we don't even know yet because the bottom of the change log just said, the bottom of the Holy Priest tree will be getting rearranged. Whatever the fuck that means. So the tree will look different in a way that we don't know. And they did... I think a thing that gets kind of glossed over is in the middle of all those notes for Holy Priest, they also announced that Holy Priest will be getting a 7% HPS nerf across the board. So even if the changes look appealing, you have to account for the fact that it's just taking a 7% nerf right out of the gate after those changes. But certainly of all the healer specs now that Mistweaver has had its moment in the sun, I don't know that there's been another healer spec that has been as consistently underpowered this expansion as Holy Priest. It really hasn't had a moment. Now, it did certainly get to enjoy a very long window of being meta at the end of Shadowlands. So it's not like it's been forever since Holy Priest was good, but I don't think there's really been a time in Dragonflight where Holy Priest stood out as being a super strong healer. Wasn't Holy really strong in Season 2 raids? I mean, I don't know that it was, like, really strong. Am I surprised Holy Paladin hasn't had any tweaks? The problem with Holy Paladin right now is that at a certain point, they have to... You can't just keep fucking with Holy Paladin, which may not be fair to Holy Paladin, but it's also kind of like main character syndrome. To just be like, fix us again. No, wait, that wasn't good enough. Fix us again. Wait, no, I didn't like that either. Fix us again. No, hold on. Fix us again. And it's like, cool, hey, there's other specs out there that are also not in a great spot. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Fix us again. Sorry. Like, yeah, were you maybe not happy with the changes that got made to Holy Paladin throughout Dragonflight? Sure. But is Holy Paladin unique in that regard? No. Plenty of specs have had changes that they weren't happy with. And sometimes you just have to deal with it for a while. Holy Pally hasn't been... I mean, Holy Pally was dominantly meta for several months after its 10.15 rework. Like, dominantly meta. Then it became just run-of-the-mill meta for another few months until 10.2 came out. Then it got nerfed to the point where it was no longer good, and now some of its interactions are kind of clunky. And that's unfortunate, but it's been not even a whole tier. It's been like a few months of a tier, the Holy Paladin hasn't been insane, and Paladins are like, why are we not reworked yet? And it's like, hey, there's specs that have like not been reworked really at all this expansion. Or at least minimally. So the unfortunate answer is you may just have to wait till next expansion to get meaningful changes to your spec. Sorry. You might have to deal with being bad for a few tiers in a row. Not even the Holy Paladin's like bad necessarily. It's still represented in like every raid healer comp. Said tweaks, you just meant percent tweaks, not a rework. Well, I did get percent tweaks on a set bonus. Otherwise, I don't know. It remains to be seen whether its new set bonus meaningfully changes its HPS. I'm not sure. But I haven't really even looked recently at where our Holy Paladin has ended up on healing logs. How are we looking at statistics this week? Healing. Let's see here. All right, so range of, let's say, 1 week. Okay, so Mistweaver has been brought back down. Rest of Druid has risen a bit. Yeah, I mean, Holy Paladin seems a little underpowered, but again, given their kit, they, I think, are sort of expected to be sitting below other healers on the HPS chart. So their relative position here is maybe not surprising. The extent to which they're at the bottom is probably a bit concerning. Where are we at with like 90th percentile? I mean, they could maybe still catch like a, I don't know, like a 3 or 4% buff, but they probably shouldn't be higher than this here. Disc should be a bit lower than this, probably. Shaman and Evoker maybe should be a little bit higher. Holy Priest should be definitely higher. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Holy Paladin got some HPS buffs. Man, I'm supposed to be getting my new monitor today. And I keep just waiting for the doorbell. Think building for Holy Power and for it to feel bad is tough. Yeah, but I mean, are you really doing that on Holy Paladin anymore? Like building for Holy Power? Like, I understand it feels sort of pointless to have Holy Power if the Holy Power spenders don't do anything, but I feel like you just sort of ignore your Holy Power. You just pretend like it doesn't exist. What monitor? The MSI 321 URX. It's the 4K OLED, 240 hertz. All right, do we have any more news that's come out about WoW? Oh, sick, dude. The Evoker legendaries and the Zero and Fearlath legendaries are returning in Season 4. Let's go. Fuck yeah, level 502 versions of the legendaries. Whoop, 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 whoop. Have to reobtain them? I don't think so. It looks like there's a new item. Because Scale of Awakening says awaken the power within either of these, increasing its item level to 502 and allowing it to be upgraded further. So I don't think you have to reobtain them, but I think you'll have to obtain a currency that allows them to be upgraded. That likely drops from final bosses in the raid or something, or just a general chance to drop in raid. I don't know. I'm making that up, but probably some drop from raid bosses that lets you collect these items to upgrade your legendary. They better not make it easier to get. Well, they secretly buffed the drop rate of Nezuro this tier. So Nezuro is easier to get now than it used to be. Fearlath has obviously been made easier to get this tier. Why is it a problem if legendary is easier to get? Oh, I don't think it's a problem that legendary is easier to get. I have a little bit of a problem with them rebuffing legendaries again in Season 4. Like, hey, they already had their fun with that legendary in Season 2. I think that can be enough. Poor Evoker, dude. Poor Evokers are going to have to decide, oh man, do I want to use the legendary or do I want to use the brokenly good fucking staff off Broodkeeper? Fuck is Evoker? Fuck, do I want to do... How much damage is this going to do at 4 or 528? Carnalex. Let's see. Or let's scale it to current eye level. If it was 489, it would do 128,000. So 129 times 6 times 1 plus verse. Okay, why is it 128 times 6? Why not just do that calculator, whatever. All right, so 129,000 times 6 times 1 plus verse. So how much verse do I have right now? 26%. So 1.26. A million damage. Cool. That's cool. That's only like 3 times as much as Iridol does. And it's usable all the time and not just when enemies are under 30% HP. 35%. Ba 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 da ba 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 da. How bad is Resto Druid Mana? Really? Want to reroll because I enjoy the playstyle, but your guild's worried? I mean, it's gotten a little bit better since they changed the mana costs a few weeks ago. But it's definitely noticeable compared to like something like Mistweaver or Disc Priest, which have really good built-in ways to generate their own mana. Resto Druid's mana pool is an issue. I don't think it's like I don't think it's going to be a nightmare. And worst comes to worst, you can just always run less haste. That's really what feeds into a lot of Druid problems, is that a lot of the top parsing Druids are running like fucking 8,000 haste. They're just like stacking the shit out of it and just spamming rejuve as hard as they can. But I've been playing Druid for a few weeks in Raid, and I mean, definitely I have to pay attention to mana, whereas when I was playing Disc Priest, you just pretend like it doesn't exist. But I wouldn't say that it's crippling or anything. Ooh, here's an interesting article. Are empowered spells expanding beyond evokers? Everybody loves empowered spells, right? I would love to have just a ton of empowered spells on Druid. Like empowered wild growth. I have to sit there and cast it for like fucking 3 seconds. Oh, that'd be good. Please. Please give Druid the empowered treatment. Now, what I actually wouldn't mind on Druid is if they made like Trank an empowered spell and made it so that the amount you empowered it would change how many ticks you got out of it or something. And then that way, if I start channeling or if I start empowering it and I have to move mid empowerment, it doesn't make me cancel my fucking Trank. Instead, I just cancel the empowered cast and then I recast the empowered spell to try to get the full Trank cast at the end of it. Something like that. I'm trying to think if there's even a Druid spell I wouldn't mind being empowered, and I feel like the answer is no. I feel like nobody would want any of their shit to ever be empowered. I think it's just like I think it's just a not good design decision. Like the concept's kind of cool, but in practice it just always felt bad. In what situation would you want to successfully what situation would you want to successfully cast it early for less ticks? Oh, well, I think the idea would be that you would make the empowered spell be insanely long cast. Like, you would make the empowered channel, or whatever the fuck you call it, be like 8 seconds of you sitting there. And you could instead opt to do like if you just wanted to do something, if you didn't really care about doing like a full trank, you could maybe channel it for like 2 seconds and then. But it maybe wouldn't be linear. I don't know. Maybe you'd get like 50% of its power if you channel it for 2 seconds, and like 75% if you channel it for something like that. I don't know. Interesting issue that kind of failed on dynamically choose. Yeah, I do think that the premise for empowered spells is probably flawed. The idea that players want to be changing the way the spell I could maybe see like a binary spell, like one of two outcomes, and you could pick one or the other type thing. But when an empowered spell has like 3 or 4 settings, who's really trying to spend that much fucking time to pick the power of the spell? Realistically, you're gonna either want the full duration of it, or you're gonna want it to be casted as quickly as possible. So it's either you're channeling it, you're either empowering it for 1, or you're empowering it for the max, whatever that is, like 3 or 4. But it seems like anywhere in between is either a mistake, or you wanted to channel it longer, but something forced your hand. It wasn't necessarily a conscious decision. It was just like, fuck, I wanted to get a full channel, but I could only get 2 ticks before I had to move. So, yeah, I guess I feel like the idea of an empowered spell with several delineations on it is sort of pointless. I feel like you just make it a one or the other thing. All right, what were the other? No raid rotation in season 4. What? Where you just like pick the raid you do each week or some shit? That'll be toxic as fuck. if your entire raid has to agree on what? Okay. Wait a sec, dude. No way. The text of these splash screens may indicate there's no raid rotation this time. One of the biggest criticisms of faded raids was that only one raid was available each week, and it changed from week to week, making you reprog a new raid every week. If this is true, you'll be able to pick your favorite raid if you want. And for sure, all 20 members of your raid will want to do the same raid. There is no chance that you all have bis loot out of different raids and different bosses. And everyone will surely want to clear all 3 raids every week. Guaranteed, everyone's super looking forward to raiding 3 different raids every week to make sure everybody gets all their loot. That'll be a fucking nightmare if they do that. I cannot actually think of a thing that will torpedo a faded season harder than this. Letting your raid pick which raid they want to do each week. And especially if you allow guilds to do all 3 raids. All right. Dragonflight, faded rewards. We've got a rainbow fox thing. You'll gain raid teleports. What are the Season 4 PvP rewards? Dude, why do the PvP mounts look so fucking sick? PvPers have a lot of very valid criticisms of the state of PvP at the moment, but the rewards they get for mounts are definitely the best in the game. Every one of their armored seasonal rewards looks sick as fuck. Even their vicious mounts look cool. Like, these things look fucking cool. And when I compare that to this stupid motherfucker, never did Faded in Shadowlands, where Mythic Faded raids a lot easier than basic Mythic. Well, it wasn't an apples to apples comparison because they added in raid affixes for Faded Season 4. And some of the affixes were pretty free. And if you got one of those affixes that week, they rotated which affixes were on which bosses each week. If you got the good affixes on a boss that week, the boss could be pretty easy to do. Definitely easier than it was in its original season. If you got one of the shitty affixes on it, it could make that boss a real pain in the ass. There were bosses each week we straight up skipped. There was like one affix, I can't remember which one it was. There was like one affix where it was like, whichever boss got that affix, we just didn't do that boss. It was like, fuck that, we're gonna not do that guy. New Dragonflight expansion meta achievement. That's a mount? Huh. Okay. Yay, BR mode, Psy? There's no Psy. Look, worst case scenario, you don't play BR mode. And then, so what? It's not like we were going to get anything cool in a 10.26 patch anyway. Like, there was no world where we got this instead of some other really engaging content in the game. So it's basically a free BR mode, and if you enjoy it, great. And if you don't, whatever. Supposed to complain and be negative? I mean, I do frequently. That's when you know. That's when you know you're being too much of a sourpuss. When something happens and I'm like, "Yo, that sounds cool," and you're like, "Actually, it sounds stupid as fuck," and it's like, "Shit." If JB's being nice about it and I'm complaining about it, ugh. Think it's funny seeing people on Twitter bash others for simply not liking the idea because it doesn't appeal to their style. Wait, hold on. That's a lot of negative things. Hold on. I got to work out. Funny seeing people bash others for not liking the idea because it doesn't appeal to their style. It's like one of those sentences where it's like not, and then I have to like start canceling out knots to figure out which side of it we're coming out on at the end. Okay, so it's funny seeing people bash others for not liking the idea because it doesn't appeal to their style. So you think people should be allowed to bash Battle Royale because they don't like it? Is if I'm understanding that correctly. What do I think about priest changes? Uh it's tough to say. There's so many of them that it's tough to say. Um and I'm not super familiar with Holy Priest at the moment, so I'm not even sure. I'm not entirely sure where they started from in terms of playstyle. I'm not entirely sure where the changes get them. All of that is then mixed in with the fact that they got a 7% healing nerf on top of that. So regardless of what changes to the playstyle occur, they need to be a net HPS gain because the class is also getting nerfed by 7% on healing, which makes me believe that it was probably a rather significant HPS gain because that would be kind of shitty for Blizzard to give them a bunch of changes and then fuck their healing even harder. So I suspect they did get a rather large healing buff, but when you take a 7% nerf on that, then you better hope that it was a pretty large healing buff. It's okay for people to be excited about this update. It's also okay for people to not be excited, and each side bashing for their reaction. Well, sort of. For the people, there are people that were like, Battle Royale, I don't give a fuck, and like, or like, oh my god, that's what they wasted their time on, and it's like, it's one of those moments where if you don't like it, I think you just shut up and move on. If it wasn't for you, that's fine. But it would be, in my opinion, almost no different than seeing patch notes for PvP balancing and being like, I can't believe they wasted their time on PvP balancing when they could have been working on PvE balancing. And it's like, yeah, man, there's other parts of the game. Sorry. I'm sorry that they did not exclusively work on the content that you like. Like, it's definitely okay to not. I'm not super excited about Battle Royale. I probably will, especially because of the timing of the launch. I probably would only do the Battle Royale shit if I was bored. And this week is a push week, the first one in several weeks. So our group has committed to playing a bunch this week of Mythic Plus. So I expect to be doing keys all week long, a lot of them. Probably not a lot of time for Battle Royale. Definitely not intending to do it in my spare time. So I don't even think I'll be doing much of the new thing this week. Now, maybe next week, when it's another dog shit affix week, maybe we'll hop into Battle Royale. See what it's like. See what's up. Try to farm some rewards. But I won't be doing it because I especially want to do it, I don't think. It'll just be better than running circles in Valdrakken. Hopefully it's better than running circles in Valdrakken. But it definitely was not something that got me super gassed up when I read it. I wasn't like, oh, fuck yeah, dude, I fucking love BR. But I appreciate Blizzard trying new stuff, even if it's not necessarily stuff I'm interested in. And there is a it's kind of like the way they teach you with parenting, how you have to think about how you react to your children doing a thing, like with potty training, for instance. If your kid like poops in the wrong spot, you don't want to necessarily yell at them, because then they're just going to associate them pooping at all with you yelling at them. Sorry, I know this is an analogy. I know we're going places with this one. But you have to be careful, because it's like, I can't just yell at them for pooping in the wrong spot, because they won't be able to make that distinction between like, okay, I don't mind that you pooped, everyone poops, but you pooped in the wrong spot. They're just going to associate like, oh, I pooped, and then he yelled at me, so now I'm scared to poop. And it's the same thing with Blizzard. They can make new stuff, and you cannot like it, but you have to be very careful with your response to that, because you don't want to discourage them from trying new stuff. You may not like the thing that they created, but your first reaction needs to not be like, God fucking damn it, you made the wrong fucking thing. Because like, then they're going to be like, cool, every time we try new shit, the community just gets pissed off. Well, we're just going to stop trying to make new shit. Like, fuck you guys then. So you have to like couch that reaction. Like, you can not like it, but I think the sentiment I want to convey first is like, okay, I appreciate you guys tried new things. Thank you. I've been asking for that. I like to see that. That's good. And you lead with that, and then once you've offered that positive, then you can say like, okay, Battle Royale, not my first choice. Maybe not the content I would have liked to have seen, blah, blah, blah. If the very first thing you come out with is like, fuck you guys, Battle Royale is stupid as fuck, you guys are fucking idiots, then they're not going to be like, oh, well, they appreciated us trying new things, they just weren't really a fan of Battle Royale. They're just going to be like, oh, they just hate when we do new shit. Okay, well, we're not going to do new shit anymore, because players just shit on us when we do it. Squiz, thank you for the resub, babe. 24 months, aka 2 years. Love it. Appreciate it. Congratulations on your new green Gigababe sub icon. Thank you for your continued inclusion in the j.babes. The hype came from the community because all Blizzard did was stay quiet. Not entirely true. Blizzard definitely hyped this thing up. Now, not in terms of quantity necessarily. There was not a fire hose of marketing for 10.2.6, but they, as a company, definitely leaned into the like, ooh, we're keeping it quiet because or not even necessarily we're keeping it quiet because it's a big deal, but keeping it quiet is a big deal. We never keep shit quiet. The fact that we're keeping it quiet indicates this is a big deal. And they started doing the pirate flag shit. Like, a lot of Blizzard employees were all tweeting the pirate flag shit anytime the 10.2.6 came up. You would see a lot of people that don't normally get necessarily super rah about that kind of shit. When for Blizzard, you would see Blizzard employees that's not their normal tweeting cadence. They would all tweet like pirate flag shit every time 10.2.6 came out, and that added an air of like, oh wow, this has got everybody at Blizzard kind of engaged. So Blizzard was definitely leaning into this. Did I get my monitor? No, but it is out for delivery today, which is all I could ask for. I was just worried that it had been in transit from California for several days, and we had not gotten an update. By the end of stream yesterday, it was still just like in transit, but this morning we got it had been checked in and then was out on the truck for delivery today, so it should be coming in at some point today. Which one? The MSI 321URX. I appreciate them trying stuff, but this was a listed patch in an MMO, and this isn't an MMORPG game mode. So I feel like I paid for WoW and got Fortnite. Also, it feels like an indication that WoW is getting ready to be shifted to mobile friendly. I mean, I feel like MMORPG is like almost a meaningless genre at this point. In terms of indicating what kind of a game you're going to get. WoW is not the first MMORPG to have a Battle Royale game mode, by the way. They're not breaking ground here. Other MMOs have had Battle Royale game modes in them. I remember getting paid to fucking play one of them like 4 years ago in Black Desert Online. They released some Battle Royale shit. And we did a sponsored stream for it. And it was definitely interesting. I hadn't really played BDO before that, so that was like my only exposure to the game. But I don't know that it's fair to say that it's part of an MMORPG. It exists on the BNet launcher, and I think it will probably exist under the World of Warcraft drop down, like under the WoW segment here. But in some ways I feel like it's not necessarily any different from like pet battling or something, where pet battling is definitely not MMORPG behavior in the traditional sense. It's not what you would associate with an MMORPG. But so what? You know, if they want to test that out, my only reservation about new content like this is if I feel like it is detracting from the rest of the game. If I feel like we are being shortchanged on the rest of the game because of this new thing. And I don't feel like that's probably the case for the Battle Royale. I don't think they had to create probably many, if any, new assets for the Battle Royale game. Maybe a few bosses. They needed like a new model for them or something, but who knows? But I doubt that they created any new spells for it. It's in Arathi Highlands, so they didn't spend any time making a new like instance or something for it. I don't think they probably used any artist time, or at least very minimal artist time for this. I feel like this probably was handled by a relatively small contingent in their company. And it was at a time in the expansion where there's usually not a whole lot happening anyway. So I don't feel like there was a huge opportunity cost to it. And if that's the case, then you know, if it's not traditional WoW, so what? Like, traditional WoW is not necessarily a winning formula at this point. I don't think anyone is laboring under the impression that World of Warcraft is growing as a game. I think it has been dying a very slow death since its Zenith and like Wrath of the Lich King or whatever. Which isn't to say it's a bad game or that it is going to die anytime soon, but it has not been growing. It has been contracting. And if Blizzard can try to think outside the box and throw in some different game modes that are non-traditional, then fucking great. If it gets more people playing the game, great. And if it doesn't, so what? I'm not required to play it. I mean, that's another key element of this. This isn't the Maw. This isn't tied to my character power. I'm not going to get dragged into Battle Royale for gear. I can play it at my leisure, which means not at all if I don't feel like it. Like, there's some cosmetics, but if I don't want to play it, I will not suffer for it on live. And given that it's a completely distinct game mode that requires no character to do it, it's not even like I have to do anything to play it. You know, I can just log in it and do whatever I want when I want to. So yeah, I mean, I think it's I think worst case scenario, it's a thing that people try for a week and then go like, okay, that was interesting, but it didn't really hook me, and they move on from it. And if that's the case, then so be it. Best case scenario, it ends up being wildly popular, and we see the invention of a new game mode in World of Warcraft that draws in a lot of players. I think that's very unlikely. I don't expect that to happen at all. I think most likely we get something where some people think it's really cool. A lot of people kind of go, eh. And maybe we get some cool tech that comes out of it that can be applied to live servers. Maybe, you know, that, which is, I think, should ultimately be the goal of any of this kind of shit, is let's try some kind of out there new idea. Expect that the out there new idea is going to probably not appeal to a majority of the player base, but maybe there will be a few things from that we can take, a few successes from that we can take and like fold back into the main game, which is how I see what like season 4 from Shadowlands being. It wasn't quite as out there as a battle royale game mode, but they definitely tried a bunch of new stuff in season 4. Some of it landed with the player base. They liked it. Some of it, not a big fan of it. Unfortunately, I feel like they didn't use a lot of the things that were popular, but the opportunity was there. There were some mechanics and some lessons learned from that season that I think they could carry forward and use in their sort of main game. And I just don't see much of a downside to the Battle Royale thing. And if it gets people excited, that's in its own way, that is its own success. So much of video games is just getting people excited by fucking anything. It's just hard to get people excited in a 10.2.6 patch. Hold on. Maybe you can't just come walking down the stairs today with nothing in your hands. Hold on one sec. All right. What? Because it's funny. Shauna came walking downstairs without a monitor under her arm, which should be illegal today. On a day where something like a monitor is being delivered, when Shauna comes walking down the stairs without a monitor, and now she's yelling at me from the other room. What monitor to go with? The MSI 321URX. And they have a promotional thing if you buy that monitor right now, which is not easy to do, by the way. Finding that monitor to buy at the moment is rather difficult. If you're able to do it, you also get a $100 Steam gift card. So I need to figure out a game to buy on Steam. I may buy Elden Ring with that money. Maybe that's Elden Ring and then enough money to buy part of some other game. Sheesh, $1,000 monitor. Oh, dude, some of the okay. So there's a the panel on this monitor is not exclusive to MSI. It's a panel that is developed by Samsung, and several monitor makers are using it in their monitor this year. The MSI monitor is priced at $950 only in the US. I think in most other countries, it is the equivalent of like $1,300 or $1,400 US. And the other companies that are making monitors with this panel are similarly pricing their monitors around like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 overseas. Some places are getting gouged harder than that. I think Australia is paying like through the ass for these monitors. So $950 is actually like an amazing deal for this, and the fact that you then get a $100 gift card is even more incredible. I don't know why the fuck MSI is pricing it at $950 in the US, but I'll take it. Not familiar with Adorama, but they have them in stock. Yes, that's kind of bait with Adorama. What they are allowing you to do is queue up for it. They'll allow you to essentially back order it, and when it comes available, they'll send it to you. But I signed up with them. I ended up canceling my order after we successfully ordered it through Walmart. But I think I had been back ordered for 2 weeks, and it still said back order. And when I looked on the OLED gaming subreddit, there were other people that had done the same thing through Adorama. I think they had put in their order at like the end of February, and they still had no update on when it was going to be shipped. So given the fact that that's just been sitting there open, my guess is they have hundreds, if not thousands, of back orders lined up. And even when they start getting stock, I imagine they will have difficulty working through that backlog of orders. Is 3730 good enough for NA Mythic Plus cutoffs for title? Well, let's see what the current Raider IO Mythic Plus. Currently, it is 3620. Seems unlikely it'll jump by 100. So I'd guess that's safe. I would expect there to be a jump here. There'll be a little jump this week because it's a push week and it's a fortified push week. So there'll be a little jump this week. And then there's another pair of weeks coming up. Nobody knows when season 4 is going to end. I think the expectation is probably around the beginning of May, somewhere within a week or two on either side of that. But we've got a good push week coming up next week with Fort Bursting Storming. Then maybe the worst week of the season with Afflicted Bolstering Tyrannical. Then another shit week with Sanguine Incorp Fortified. But then we've got back-to-back good weeks here in April. I don't think we will have gotten season 4 by this point. That would be a very quick season 4. So I think we'll get a pair of really good push weeks in mid-April with Entangling Bursting Tyrannical and then Volcanic Spiteful Fortified. And this is where I think we'll see the last push of the season on these 2 weeks. And then kind of wherever you're at here, like whatever the cutoff is by this point is very likely where it'll end for the season. And so I expect there to be a bit of rating inflation across the board this week, or this reset, and then another one on this pair of weeks. But I would be very surprised if it's 100 points. Plunderstorm is 6 weeks. Maybe season 4 comes when Plunderstorm leaves. 6 weeks. Where would that put us? 1, 2. Well, I guess it's this week. So this would be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. April 30th. Yeah, that sounds about right. I think most people would expect it to be right around the beginning of May. So, yeah, that seems like probably a good guess. Did I say season 6? Well, I fucking meant it. Hmm. I'm trying to think if WoW was going to introduce any other game mode that was just completely unrelated to like MMOs. I'm trying to think what game mode I would like to see the most. Not Battle Royale. Maybe some like turn-based game of some kind. Tower defense. Yeah, I haven't been. I was actually historically I've not been a huge tower defense guy. I was actually surprised Rumble got me as interested as it did. Still think I should get Slay the Spire? I actually looked it up the other day. I didn't realize that game came out as long ago as it did. Like, I knew it wasn't a brand new game, but I didn't realize it came out 5 years ago. A roguelike mode? See, I have contended that I think if we had a Mythic Plus that was like Torghast, like here's what I would maybe love to see as a standalone game mode, where you do a dungeon together with a group, a la Torghast, where you start with a randomized set of anima powers, and the goal is to run the dungeon, but your anima powers change every time you start the dungeon. And it wouldn't necessarily be, I wouldn't necessarily say that you like acquire, I don't know, maybe every boss you kill in the dungeon gives you a new anima power choice. So you like start the dungeon, you have maybe like a 30-second countdown. Like you start the dungeon, you have a 30-second countdown where you're introduced to your first set of anima powers, and you're given 30 seconds to figure out which anima powers you want to take. And then you go through the dungeon, and maybe every time you kill a boss, you get another anima power option. But like no time to really think about what you want. You just, the anima powers pop up, and you have to quickly decide like that one, and then keep going as fast as you can. And I think that'd be really cool, but people would be pissed off if you just put that in a normal Mythic Plus, because then they just cry about RNG. All like that would just, it would just be nonstop people pissing and shitting their pants about RNG. I didn't get the good anima powers, that's why we're slower. So you couldn't just do it as a straight up replacement for Mythic Plus. But I think it'd be really fun to have dungeons where you have consequential anima powers, like that they're important, meaningful anima powers that dramatically change the effect of certain spells, and that you have to figure that out on the fly quickly through the dungeon. And especially because you have several different characters in the group, there might be combinations of anima powers that, like, independently, your anima powers might be, you know, better or worse. But then when you combine them with anima powers from somebody else, maybe they become insane, you know, like a, like maybe you have an anima power that causes your single root to be a mass root every time. Every time you use it, like it just converts single root into mass root, you can spam it. And maybe normally you're like, okay, but like how often do I want to mass root something? But then maybe somebody else has an anima power that they can pick up where like their abilities do double damage to a rooted enemy. And so now you're like, well, normally I wouldn't really give a shit about spamming roots on an entire group because like who cares? But holy fuck, every time I put roots on the enemy, you know, one of the damage healers in my group is doing twice as much DPS. So I'm just gonna sit here and like spam root over and over and over again, and it's gonna be a massive DPS increase for the group. Shit like that. And trying to figure that out in real time through a dungeon and coordinate your anima power choices together, I think would introduce a lot of high level decision making and a lot of like nearly infinite replayability variables to account for in a dungeon, where you would, You know, you may never see the same set of anima powers twice across 5 players, and you have to keep coming up with like new and different ways to exploit those combinations. Potato, thank you for the resub, babe. 16 months. Appreciate it. And thank you for your continued inclusion in the j.babes. Would be super fun for 99.9%. Feel like top key pushers would either find a way to exploit it or just discredit people. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, for the people that care about Mythic Plus ladder, then it would devolve into a lot of crying about how they, you know, would have had the top time except their anima powers sucked, which is why I would like it to be a separate game mode from Mythic Plus. Not a replacement, but something alongside it where you would accept that if there is a ladder, it's only meaningful to the extent that, you know, you recognize that anima power RNG was a thing. But I think for people that just want to go in and have fun, like if the only thing you care about is going in and having fun, then I think that's the kind of thing that would offer a lot of interesting choices every time you went in there. How did I like Encrypted? I mean, it was probably the best seasonal affix we had, which isn't to say it was perfect, but it offered the thing that I think most people have been asking for with affixes, which is please let the affix do something positive for me. So even though it required you to kill a mini boss, and even though you could grief the shit out of yourself by killing the wrong mini boss, at the very least, it was a season where you got something cool that happened. Like the affix did something positive for you if you handled it correctly. As long as we never see Thundering again. Yeah, Thundering... I would say maybe the most disappointing part about Thundering is it really felt like we had settled into a nice groove coming out of Shadowlands, where we had Encrypted, where you had the positive aspect of a seasonal affix, and then you had Shrouded, which I liked less than Encrypted, but similar theme. You had to kill a dude, and then you got a buff from it. Cool. Okay. It was a little more basic than Encrypted. Felt a little more mailed in than Encrypted did, but same theme. And then you got Thundering. And yeah, technically Thundering like buffed you when you did it, but like not in a particularly meaningful way. And the amount of headache that came with it was just insane. And it felt like a massive step backwards. And if Thundering had been a seasonal affix that we got in the middle of BFA, I don't think it would have been looked upon necessarily nearly as badly as it ultimately was, because our expectations were different back then. But to go from Encrypted into Shrouded, into Thundering, made Thundering feel so much worse by comparison. And I think that was the most disappointing part about it, was it felt like we had turned a corner with seasonal affixes, and it was like, okay, yeah, we're all in agreement what seasonal affixes should look like. And then to get that one was just like, okay, you know what? Never mind. Apparently we are not on the same page at all. Please just stop doing seasonal affixes. But this deal they have like this season where they let us vote on tier sets. I almost wish they would do something like that for seasonal affixes, but make it have the designers come up with like 4 or 5 potential seasonal affixes, and then put that to a vote. Like give the community a selection of seasonal affixes. New seasonal affixes. Like come up with like 4 or 5 or 6 or something potential seasonal affixes, and then pitch those to the community, and then let the community look at those and go, yeah, that one, I don't know. That one's interesting. And then like let us pick which one looks good, so that we can be as in harmony as possible on the idea of the affix. Then you can iterate on that. But the problem is there was never any agreement between the designers and the community with Thundering. The community hated the fucking idea of Thundering from the outset, and the designers were married to that idea. And they kept trying to workshop a fundamentally shitty idea to get the players to like it. And there was like no way to keep the concept of Thundering without continuing to piss off the community. And I feel like if we had been able to have an affix that out of the gate was something that we all more or less agreed upon, it would have been a lot easier for them to make changes to it that we were all happy with. But yeah, I don't necessarily mind the idea of a seasonal affix. I just I wish the community had more ability to have input on that. I don't know. It's game design is I guess there's maybe disconnect in the philosophy of it, where I think a lot of game designers feel like it's their game and they're going to make it how they want to make it, and you can either like it or not. But ultimately, it's like their thing, and the player base is like the game designer is an artist, and the player base is somebody that's walking through the art gallery, appreciating the art. And you can either appreciate the art or you can not appreciate the art, but either way, it is what it is, and you're not there giving the artist notes, you know, while they're doing it. It's not like you're standing over their shoulder being like, blue wasn't a good idea there. Maybe, you know, maybe green, actually. I think green would look good there. And they treat their games as if it's like a thing that they're going to build, and you're simply there to play it or not. But that's the part of the process where you come in at. Once it's done, then you are involved in it. And I guess when it comes to, you know, maybe for like a single player game or something, maybe it works that way. But for a game with a recurring subscription, I just don't think that's the way the game should ever be built. I think you should absolutely be soliciting feedback from the players and incorporating it as much as possible, and compromising. If you have an idea for the way the game should work, that's great, but you should be checking back with the community and being like, hey, is this a thing you guys want to see? Hey, guys that are paying me fucking $15 a month to play this game, is this a thing you want to see? No? Maybe I shouldn't fucking do that. And I feel like there's not enough of that in World of Warcraft. I feel like too often they make the decisions about what they're going to put in the game, and to the extent that they ask players about it, it's either too far along in the process for them to make any kind of significant change to it, or they just hear the feedback and they're like, yeah, we disagree. We're going to not do what you asked at all. And that's frustrating. And maybe there's reasons for it besides pride, but it feels prideful. It feels like they're like, nah, we know how to make games. You don't. You know, if we ask you, then you should feel grateful that we give a shit about in any way. But if we don't ask you, you know, fuck off. Sometimes you ask the community about what they want and you get the fucking train dungeon. Yeah. No, I mean, certainly there's times when the community's just weird. For sure. I will say this, for as much as I felt like I was being trolled by the player base when they selected Grimrail, I think I actually ended up liking that dungeon more than some of the others that season. And I mean, if you put something up to a vote for the community, and you know, you get like 55% wanting one thing and 45% wanting the other, I think you could reasonably say of that topic that there is no agreement in the community. You know, that a lot of people want it one way, a lot of people want it the other, and there's a reasonable disagreement about it. To me, it's more like if you put things up Oh, somebody's at the door. Oh, I have to stop this right now. Oh, wait. Oh, Bee's gonna get it. Okay. I didn't see. Hang on. Maybe? I gotta go upstairs, right? I can't. That's an MSI box. I'll be right back. Oh yeah, I think. It's just edge of one. Trying to make sure I didn't trap it against my shirt. Okay. The box is fucking huge. Also, yeah, I feel like that is one of the most likely porch pirated items. That box is very colorful and very prominently displays what is inside of it. So anybody passing would be you guys see the box? Well, the problem is it's big enough I'd have trouble actually fitting it in the camera. And the box is dirty from being delivered, and it's awkward enough to pick up that I have to like trap it against my body to pick it up, and I don't want to get my shirt all fucking dirty from the box. What? Okay. But Shauna says she'll get here just as soon as she's ready. I want to see this. Somebody said dungeon tuning. I want to see dungeon tuning. Okay. So we've got burning chains from Neltheris now stun enemies for 5 seconds, was 1.5 seconds. Now it deals no damage, but increases damage taken by mobs by 50% for 5 seconds. So this is absolutely how these chains should have worked from the beginning, which is they CC the mobs and they make the mobs take more damage from you, but not just a shitload of damage from the chains. So that's a very good change. Chargath now deals high damage to the tank every second until the cast ends. Was no damage unless you were in the circle. Wait.
Okay.
What?
Hey.
Oh, I didn't realize you picked it up. Hold on. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Can you see it?
I think you might need to come slightly more over.
What's your thing?
Maybe just drop it.
I'm not gonna drop it. It's heavy. Okay, bye. So strong.
Beebs, you are so strong.
Thank you. Did they see it actually?
I think they saw half of it.
We
Yeah,
saw.
that's it's a fairly like 32-inch doesn't. I don't know. Compared to how big some of these monitors are, like 42-inch monitors, 32-inch doesn't doesn't sound huge when I think about it, but when you actually pick it up, that's a honker. Not
Sorry.
quite like that.
Sorry.
Okay. So we've got Chargath, who I don't really even remember what the fuck that mechanic was. Just message me. Let's see. Warlord Saga. Curse debuff now lasts only 30 seconds, but stacks. It was previously 5 fucking minutes. And Dragon's eruption radius was reduced to 6 yards. Is that the swirly that comes out when he shields? Is that what the dragon eruption is? Because if so, that's good. Those swirlies were obnoxious as fuck when you were trying to... If you were trying to use either the charge weapon or the melee range weapon, you were... That was like your greatest risk of dying in that fight, was when the swirlies came out, trying to use those weapons, because those swirlies were so big and they resolved so quickly. So that's a good change. Let's see. Azure Vault. Arcane Tender's erratic growth cast time increased to 3 seconds, was 2. Okay. Breaker's Shoulder Slam now hits all players within 8 yards, was primary target, increases physical damage taken by 10% and ignores line of sight. Okay. Do we know when the patch is? We don't. No. Not yet. All right. Then Azure Blade, overwhelming energy ticks every 2.5 seconds, was 2. Okay. So this just means that she does slightly less AoE damage during her intermission, which is fine. Umbral Skull. Crystallized now pulses AoE damage every 1 second while the shield is active. The big crystal. I don't even remember what the fuck. Creates a barrier around the crystal that absorbs damage. I don't even remember what the fuck that is. Okay, whatever. Blue Dragonflight now increases mastery by 1100 instead of 912. Okay. Unruly Textbooks, monotonous lecture cast time increased to 3 seconds, was 2. That's good. That was a very dangerous cast to go off. Mystic Blast damage reduced by 40%. Okay. And Surge cast time increased to 2.5, was 2. Okay. No Veximus nerfs. Excellent. Croth Firestorm radius reduced to 5 yards, was 6. That's good. That fight was annoying as shit to dodge the swirlies. And Peck damage reduced by 13.3% and periodic damage reduced by 33%. So tanks are no longer going to get quite as ravaged by the bleed as they had been in the past. That's nice. Now, one thing about the Season 1 dungeons to keep in mind is we did not have Augvokers back then. And so, I mean, people played Preservation in plenty of dungeons, but you'll have Augvokers now to deal with a lot of bleeds that you may not have been able to guarantee get rid of in season 1. So this would have been, I think, a lot less dangerous if you had an Ogvoker in your group compared to a group without one. And then Echo has a new ability. Unleashes powerful arcane energy, inflicting damage to all players and opening an arcane rift in nearby locations. What the fuck? That boss was not free, Blizzard. Why are we just adding random shit to, Huh. Okay. Disruptive Shout now has a 40-yard range as intended. I don't even know what it was before. What does the Arcane Rift do? Yeah, I have no idea. Not a clue. Thunder Fist, Deadly Thunder cast time reduced to 3 seconds, was 6 seconds. Okay. Deathbolt damage increased by 50%. Cast time increased to 2.5, was 2 seconds. Okay. Beast Caller, Desecrating Roar now summons 5 dogs, was 3. Ohuna's War Ohuna's now increased damage by 150, was 200%. Those are the birds. Balara's Ravaging Spear travels 417% faster. Okay. Was that one of the 2 mini bosses? Who the fuck is Balara? Is that... Yeah. So I assume you used to be able to dodge the spear after she threw it, and now you probably can't? And then Ukel Beast Caller's Heavy Slash now also increases damage taken by 20% for 20 seconds. Cool. That's, you know, I just always felt like Nokud, the trash wasn't beating your ass quite hard enough. All right, Fiery Surge damage reduced by 50% on Lost Vikings. They nerfed like the one boss in there that wasn't dangerous. What the fuck? Containment beam damage reduced by 41. Okay, that's actually really, that's really nice. Reducing that stupid fucking beam damage is, that's actually pretty big. Okay. That's nice. Watcher Iridius Fist range increased to 50 yards. Okay. Yeah, was it ever even pointed at the group? I don't even know why the fuck they did that. Okay. Brackenhide, Bone Bolt damage reduced by 33% and duration reduced to 6 seconds from 12. That's a really nice change. Bone Bolt Volley, cast time increased to 5, was 2 seconds. Decaying Roots, cast time increased to 3.5, was 2.5 seconds. Scented Meat now throws rotten meat instead of scented meat. Okay. Withering no longer stacks and now reduces haste by a flat 2% for 20 seconds. Was a refreshing duration that stacked. Okay, that's another really nice change. That shit... That debuff by itself was enough to, like, change the meta in this dungeon. If you didn't have a way to get rid of disease, this was, like, unplayable. If you got this disease on you. And then Stink Breath's Violent Whirlwind radius reduced to 6 yards, was 7. Cool, still not playing him. Gash Frenzy now only lasts 15 seconds, was 45. Okay. Marked for Butchery now deals damage every 1 second, was 0.5 seconds. Predatory Instincts Now increases haste by 5% instead of 10. Man, what the fuck? And then last boss, Withering Rod damage reduced by 16.7%. Okay. They nerfed the last mini boss in Ruby Life Pools AoE, which is nice. Oh, and Tempest Channeler, both of them. Okay, so Lightning Storm is now cut in half damage-wise, which is nice. That was very scary. Inferno Core now deals less damage per second, but lasts a little bit longer, which is probably good. Inferno Core was just so hard to heal through. It was just a shitload of damage in a very short window. So making it the same amount of damage, but increasing the duration of it is good. And then they decreased Earth Surge damage. Or, no, wait. They nerfed Earth Surge? Increases damage taken by... Oh, whatever. Thought Dawn was going to be there. It's not. That's actually the note. It says, while it's not in the Mythic Plus rotation, there was still a change to Dawn. So... Okay. Well, definitely some good changes. The burning chain change was very good. What else was a really good change? Savage Peck, I think, was a pretty good change. This new Echo ability, I don't know about this shit. A lot of these changes are very weird. Buffing Nokud, I don't know about that. Containment Beam nerf was really big. A lot of these Brackenhide trash nerfs are really big. The Withering and Bone Bolt, I think, were two really big changes. The Ruby Life Pool Lightning Storm nerf was big. So hopefully that's not the last of the changes we've seen for Season 4, but as a first brush, I think some good stuff. Okay, well, I apologize for the short stream today, but we got a monitor, and I like the monitor more than I like you guys. So I think we're going to wrap up stream there and get this bad boy set up. I also feel like I'm kind of under the gun time-wise because we have push week starting tomorrow. And I want to make sure that my monitor is like all set up and shit, so I'm not trying to deal with any shenanigans in the middle of keys while we're pushing. So I want to get all that set up. So we will be back tomorrow with 10-6. You won't know because I'm just going to be slamming keys all week. But I guess if we... I actually don't know exactly how much the guys want to play this week. I assume because we've said it's push week that we're going to be playing a lot, but I don't know what that means. Maybe we'll have some free time. We can test out the new Battle Royale mode, see what it's like. See if we can farm some cosmetics. I don't think there's any Druid changes for the patch tomorrow, so I don't think any of that should affect our group. But hopefully some IO gain this week. No raid, so only keys. And I guess BR if we do that. And new monitor. Hopefully I have a lot of good things to say about it. So, hope you guys have fun watching. I have fun streaming as usual, primarily a Mythic Plus stream, so if that's something you're interested in or want to learn more about, hit the follow button. I'll do my best to both educate and entertain you, and I will see you tomorrow.